Right. All right. The gang's all here. I guess we'll get started. You good to go, Neil? Okay. Welcome everyone to tonight's select board meeting. Today's Monday, May 13th. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Trom, Stephen Whitley, Jeff Donahoe, and Thomas Lampoma here. Full board together once again. So first up is points of pride.
Sure. I have one I'm going to share tonight. And I just really want to thank Kara for the minutes because especially on a week like this, when it's only been a week since you met at a fairly long meeting. And we had the minutes on Friday and they were out and done and for the job it's done all the time.
Yes, thank you, Kara, for that. Round of applause. Anything else for points of pride? All right. So next on the agenda is administrative. We have approval of the consent agenda.
Sure, I'll move we approve the consent agenda of May 13, 2024.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, and approval of the public meeting minutes from May 6th, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so we have two public appointments, but,
Actually, the hazard mitigation is at 5:30.
oh,
All the
okay.
posts were.
Well, then we can
looks
jump
rough
in.
here.
Jump into the hazard mitigation.
Because I know you're excited.
Very, yes.
Get there. All right, so this is the draft, which you have in your packet, which is the draft itself is 333 pages as you received it, and it goes well over 400 pages with the appendices and maps and all of that. And this is required by FEMA to have in place, and it has to be updated every 5 years. So we're here to tell you a little bit about that plan. And if we can share, there we go. So the introduction and overview. So the purpose is to reduce future losses to life and property from potential hazard events by identifying appropriate actions to implement during the 5-year plan. And this comes out of FEMA required things, the hazard mitigation grant program. This makes us eligible for these hazard mitigation grant program, flood mitigation program, and the pre-disaster mitigation program, all federal programs. This just lists
Thank you all for your work on this.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
We still could be a year away.
Do you need anything from us to move forward?
Not until we get it back,
Okay.
which could be still a year away.
Bonnie, do you have a question about this?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for the mask.
No worries.
I was wondering, the storm that we had recently, all the trees came down. The first one, that was pretty bad. And I was trying to get home from my sister's house on South Road, which I left at 8:30. And I didn't get home to Kentucky until 2:30. And while I was out there trying to find a way to get home, I was thinking about the hazard mitigation. And I was thinking that storms like that are predicted to be more frequent and more powerful because of the change in the weather patterns. The situation that we found ourselves in is we were going down Briar Hill Road. So that's home. And as we went down the road, trees were coming down behind us. And then we got to a place where there were trees down in front of us. And we were essentially trapped up there with trees coming down all over. We were terrified. And the police did come, we called 911 and the cruiser came and they said the problem is there's 2 trees, including some down wires between my cruiser and you. You could get to the cruiser, I could take you home, but I can't guarantee that the power has been turned off in these sections. And I wondered if that is part of the plan, where we probably will have more storms like that and like various rescue scenarios or who you communicate with. I mean, we weren't even sure if we should call 911, but didn't know what else to do. And
We had crews out that night. We logged nearly 100 calls in 24 hours.
yeah,
And we had access right to the Eversource grid, not the grid, to the actual log where they dispatched from, but they had too many high winds and it was too dangerous for them to be out that night. So they didn't get out until the morning. There was a lot of civilian armorists that were cutting their way around town. There was certain parts where if we need ambulance protection or whatever, we would have had to come on a UTV to get you to the ambulance. So there was a lot of, and where I live was actually no different. I spent 2 hours trying to get to the fire station.
it was a really frightening experience and eye-opening. In a heavily wooded town where there's trees coming down.
And generally what happens with those storms is they usually impact like a portion of town, not all. That was pretty unique for how that storm actually came.
I don't think there was any road without trees down on it.
Like
Mhm.
90% of the power went down, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your work on this. More to come.
Yep.
So is the next public appointment actually 6:30 or 6?
It really is.
Oh, okay, okay. So,
So originally too, we had the community power.
oh,
committee
yes, that's right.
In
Okay,
here and they rescheduled to the next meeting because of
Okay.
a conflict they had.
got it. Okay, so since it's 6 o'clock, we can start on old business. We have work session follow-up.
Sure. I'll just first say that the chair of the Webster Select Board was here and he's invited you to the next meeting because he would really like to finalize the fee schedule and we have the draft ordinance in place. So and they meet next week. So we invited you next week if that's a doable thing.
What's the date of that one?
Would be the 20th. That's their regular meeting. To really talk about the fee schedule and the ordinance update
Mm-hmm.
and not to talk about pay by bath.
Yeah. Okay. I can make that. Is it 5:30?
I can get a time if that works, and
I can make that as well.
I'm 50-50 on that one.
Okay.
Hopefully I will, as a check.
Yeah, it should be okay.
Yeah, I can make it.
Okay,
all right, so I'll contact them tomorrow and get an exact time.
okay, thank you.
And that will be at Webster.
Okay. So I'm sorry I couldn't be there and I had to jump at about 6:15, so I think I missed like another hour or so of discussion. So I caught up with Neil a little bit, but I don't know if people have thoughts or things you did to follow up afterwards or anything to say.
Yeah, so I think the follow-up was we were gonna put together a distinct proposal that we could talk through for changes to the actual ordinances. And then that would, if we decide to recommend those, that would then become a public hearing. Is that correct?
Right. I think you were also going to, oh, you recommended a bag. Let me pull that up.
That's also a change to the order. Oh, no, that's just a change in price.
That the old one or the new one? Is he engineer?
No.
Did you get into bag pricing?
Yes. At least a starting point. So
Yeah.
based on that conversation, I put together bullet points from the conversation as kind of what we'd want to finalize for next steps.
Because my documents have the old one, not the new one.
Yeah, this is the new one, I think.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, great, cool. So I think these are still up. I don't think, I wouldn't want to say these are exactly what we did or exactly what was discussed last time, but I think these are more final starting points. The first one would be the changing the pay by bag ordinance. So the two parts of it are pricing and then the exemptions to commercial waste haulers. So we discussed last meeting. Oh yeah, sorry. So we discussed at the work session, removing the exemption for our commercial waste haulers and then increasing the price of the bags. These prices of bags, so up from our current price is 75 cents a bag and $1.25 a bag for small and large. These new prices would be $1.15 for a small bag and $2.75 for a large bag. Those numbers are based off of estimates of weight per bag and estimates of total cost to the transfer station for the transfer fee and the operational expense. The NRA report had a couple different numbers netting to somewhere in the 115 to 120 range for dollars per ton of total cost. And then I've run the numbers a couple different times and I see numbers that are anywhere from 140 to $160 a ton for total tipping plus operational expense. So these numbers are based on around $130 per ton. So I think it's a good place to start the conversation of what they could look like if the bag prices were priced to completely offset the cost of the transfer station. Not offset the price of the transfer station, but offset the total price of disposing of that waste.
Wait, we say that last part again. Sorry, the door was.
The purpose of it, well, the purpose of that bag price is if you look at all of the costs associated with disposing of that waste, that would cover all that cost. So that includes the tipping fee, includes labor costs, the cost to the haulers or to the loaders, capital improvement costs, that sort of thing. Not long-term capital improvement costs, but general capital costs.
And this bag price is a little different than the one that we had in our packet. Did you change? Does that change?
He sent a new one today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so as I was working through it this weekend, I mean, there's a couple different, I think the one that I had in the packet, I inverted the cost of the bag. So this includes the
okay.
cost of the bag. And I think I had the cost of the small bag for the cost of the large bag. So I reversed those, but
Okay.
yeah. And then moving from that into the changes we discussed for the Hopkinton Webster refuse disposal ordinance. The first one would be to remove references to the committee because we voted to remove the committee. I think that's
So
already in the
That's
draft.
already in the draft.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we discussed increase the tipping fee rate for solid waste, but we didn't really settle on any numbers for that. So that's something to discuss. And then the changes to the permit stickers. So the main changes would be first obtaining the permit stickers. So to specify that they'd be given out yearly with registrations and that they would be made in a specific shape and color to match town and yearly registration color. So it'd be easy to identify. Section 2, changing the cost of the sticker to remove or change the price of the sticker. Right now, it's just set at $1. So whether or not we want to keep that or not.
So the new draft of
The
the
new draft is-
ordinance doesn't include any prices. The fee schedule is separate, so it
Right.
can be changed without changing the ordinance. So
Right. Okay. So the last ordinance had, I believe, $1. So whether or not we want to keep a price of the sticker or leave it. And then the potential to add on additional prices for commercial users. So people who are doing either commercial hauling or demo and construction hauling, and whether or not there'd be a price for those users. And then sticker display. One, to be clear that if a resident doesn't have a sticker on their vehicle, they can still use the transfer station. They just have to display or they have to show their ID and then use the scale and pay any tipping fees. And then for commercial haulers and contractors, if we would require them to have a sticker or a permit.
So why, if they're showing an ID, do they have to pay the tipping fee? I don't remember that discussion.
We
And-
could remove that too. I mean,
Because if
in
It's
real,
basically to prove you're a resident, and once you are, you should be treated the same. Also, staffing wise to enforce that is really hard.
I think that the idea, I mean, again, all of these are up for more discussion here, but I think the general idea is to not have people not having stickers. It's a easier process to use your sticker than it is to, or it's additional cost if you don't have the sticker. But again, up for discussion. So these are the main bullet points we kind of settled on in the last one is to changes if we want to move forward. And yeah.
Okay.
Are we talking about a public hearing for this?
Well, after you meet with Webster next week.
Okay.
Because they have to be done kind of at the same time.
So the process, correct me if I'm wrong, the process it would be if we want to recommend any changes, we'd settle on what those changes would be now, meet with Webster next week to confirm those changes. And then there'd be a public hearing on what those changes would be.
Correct.
Except for the green bag, those ones we would not need to wait for Webster.
Right. That's totally separate from Webster.
Well, Thomas, one small item that's hopefully not a controversial is there are some individuals that are part-time residents of town that own property in town, but probably don't register their cars here. And how would they go about getting a sticker?
So they would not. So that's whether or not we'd want to charge people the tipping fee if they show IDs, which that's a good reason not to charge people if they show IDs. We had,
They can also produce their property tax bill as a way to prove that they own property in town.
I think they would have to specifically come into the clerk's office. I think the best way to do it is have them come into the clerk's office. And if they have a tax bill
Yeah.
or a utility bill, then
Yeah.
they could get a dump
Yeah,
sticker.
I'm just thinking that we want something beside just vehicle registration.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So on the sticker front, I know we talked about like that small sample size of what you observed of non-Webster Hopkinton residents coming in. So like, was there further discussion about enforcing resident, so like with the stickers, it would actually be like you have to really show them.
Yeah, so and the
Okay.
decision was basically made last time that stickers will be issued yearly when you register your car. They'll be the same color as your registration sticker and inspection sticker. And Webster and Hopkinton stickers will be two different shapes to designate them separately. Right now, they're two different colors, but that would have to start. I started thinking about it. That would have to start for cars being registered in 2025. So we would use the stickers we have now. And I still think there should be ongoing spot checks and
Mhm.
things to do that. And then issue the stickers we have. And then as 2025, which will start in October, some people will register, they'll get their new stickers. So it will take almost a
Yeah.
year to switch them over, but that seems better than, as long as you have one of the stickers, that seems better than trying to issue stickers and then the clerk's office couldn't issue them. People might end up with so many stickers that it wouldn't really be effective.
Mhm. We're still discussing, sorry. Um, okay, so that's stickers, and then in terms of like green bag commitment and enforcement, was that where everyone landed? Is that we're still going to?
I think where we landed was, and definitely correct me if I'm off on this one. I think where we landed was, the town voted on doing it. So without having at least a substantial public hearing, with a lot of community attendance, it would be strange for us to just get rid of it without showing at the very least what it would look like with proper enforcement. I think that any conversation about the actual price of the bags or what it would look like has to assume that there is going to be proper enforcement. So a lot of these things address what proper enforcement would look like. And then the other side of it is bag prices haven't been properly set. And so if we were to do all these things, what would the bag prices, what would they look like? So then there can be a proper discussion as to whether or not it's something people would want to do or not. I think that. Okay.
Yes, I think that's right. And then the only thing I would add is that there was also talk about hiring at least a part-time staff person, ideally a full-time staff person at the transfer station to take on the additional just time it's going to require to enforce. And so that may require us to move some money around or to pull the money out of the green bag fund or apply the money from the green bag fund for that purpose.
Which I'm sure, based on my conversations earlier, Webster's going to want. If it's somebody enforcing green bags, they're going to not want to be paying for 25% of that.
Okay, that makes sense. In a sea of bad options, that seems like a logical, reasonable path on green bags. Okay, so then discussing commercial waste and haulers. So it sounds like you guys talked about sort of rescinding the exception so that it must, for all residential waste, it has to be green bags.
Yeah, I think I mean, when it comes to the green bags, it's kind of like everyone has to use them or not. That's the best we can do, is require them at the transfer station and require any pickup that's coming to the transfer station to also be in green bags. And again, this is a starting point to show what the program would look like if we were to
Right.
properly enforce it.
So in terms of decisions to make tonight,
Probably
Got
get a
them.
number on the solid waste tipping fee if we're gonna be talking with Webster. My memory is that we talked about anywhere from $130 to $150 per ton. We didn't settle on one, but we probably ought to. Yeah, we probably ought to before we meet with Webster.
Yeah, what was the latest? I know we spent a lot of
I can
time
pull
talking.
that up.
Okay, thank you.
They thought we were in the 120 to 140 range.
Okay, I don't have my,
Time.
Yeah.
You,
that may be correct.
I think the last time you talked about it, you settled on 100. So this is the most recent. But the last time you met with Webster, it was 120.
Right.
Right. Webster wanted actually Webster initially wanted a much higher rate.
And what was the recommendation from NRA?
I think it was 150, I believe.
That's what they had recommended.
And so 120 was the compromise, right, with Webster? Isn't that where we landed?
Yeah, and then the meeting after you went to 100 from 120, but that hasn't been discussed with Webster
And then at
because
this-
you were trying to match the bag price.
And I was just gonna add, and then this meeting we had, the last meeting, we talked about this. We had talked about going up from the 120.
And Thomas, for the bag prices, how would that correspond to what on rate?
Sorry, for what?
For the green bag prices?
If we were to do,
The number you calculated it based on, I think, is what he's asking.
so 130
130?
is this, sorry, the revenue. The revenue per ton, so take out the bag price itself, would be 120, somewhere between 126 and 129.
Okay, so in terms of the bag pricing itself, is that, do we need to do that through the ordinance?
That's
Or is that its own?
that's totally separate. from
Separate, okay,
Webster.
okay. Right, so that's its own.
The tipping fee set, that's part of the same price schedule,
Tipping fees,
part of the same price schedule. It's not a
It's-
difference.
tipping fees on this fee scale, which is all the transfer station, but the bags are totally separate.
But the fee schedule is part of the ordinance, of the transfer station ordinance.
But the select board
but
has
it's-
the power to set that annually now.
But we still, but jointly, still.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Right, okay.
Right,
so
but
that's-
it's being taken out of the ordinance.
Right, but,
I see what you're saying. Right.
It's a separate
Yep.
vote, basically.
Mhm.
right, but it's one that both towns have to do.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Agreed. Both boards have to approve it.
So in terms of changing the bag price process would be, is that a simple?
You
Change
have the
bags.
authority to
Okay.
do that.
Okay. So do we want to start with that as a decision here tonight? And that would match up with $130. Maybe.
Roughly roughly $130 revenue per ton.
I guess I was under the impression that we were gonna wait and see where Webster was at with the joint pricing changes before we did the green bag, but I may have flipped that.
Or we could agree that whatever we reach an agreement with Webster on the tipping fees, that then the green bag price would correspond to that.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So
Well, so to me, there's a difference between a tipping fee and covering the cost of the waste. The reason, um, we might set a lower tipping fee, understanding that some of that cost is being offset by taxes, but in terms of the green bags, large, one of the large parts of the purpose behind the green bag is to cover the cost of the waste being disposed of by the green bag.
Right.
So, yeah. They don't necessarily have to.
Don't have to
go together.
coordinate.
Right.
Yeah. So
Um,
you're saying we don't have to wait to,
They don't need to be the same.
okay, yeah. And remind me, Neil, I don't think we have it in this month, but the town meeting vote that gave the board the ability to do the green bag pricing, did it require a public hearing?
It did not. A public hearing wasn't mentioned in
Okay.
it.
I would suggest maybe having a specific public hearing on it, though. It
Yeah,
is a-
no, I agree.
It is a significant change.
Because I think the ordinance, pay by bag ordinance needs to be updated at the same time. So you could do both at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to move forward process wise here, like what we need to decide right now versus what we maybe need a loose decision on, but also requires a public hearing. So like the bag pricing is one of those things, I think, where are we in agreement conceptually though about raising the price to cover the cost of the waste for green bags?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to just setting a number and having a public hearing on it. I don't think it needs to be linked into whatever we decide for the fee schedule.
Right. So, but what you suggested here are estimates to cover the cost of the waste, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the estimates of cost of the waste have nothing to do with what we agree on with Webster as to what it would be. I mean, they're just based on different versions of calculating it based on the budget numbers. So it's not like we need to discuss with Webster to say what the cost of the waste is, because the cost of the waste is our tipping fee plus our operational cost. And then whatever we decide to set the tipping fee to, that's just what we decide to set it to.
But in terms of us just looking at the price of the green bags, which we will have to have a public, we don't have to, but we will have a public hearing on. Are we in general agreement about what you prepared? I assume,
You mean,
yes.
yeah, changing the price
Okay.
to 115 and 275.
115,
Yeah.
275.
Okay, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
And also if we want to rescind the exemptions to the haulers. Which if we are going to properly price the bags and properly enforce it, I do think it's fair to also require pickups to also use the green bags.
And I think that should also be part of the public hearing. that
Yeah.
we have.
Right.
okay. So that leaves us with the fee schedule to talk over with Webster, right?
Yep.
Okay. I think we had landed, I think, in a good place on everything. Except I'm still not sure in terms of the $100 versus 130 versus 150.
That's the one you haven't,
That's
all the others are kind of set.
Yeah, we hashed those out. Okay.
Yeah, when you talked with them, did the sticker changes come up?
No, I don't think that's kind of an operational thing, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think it should be discussed, but
Yeah.
I think it's a different.
Okay, so is there a reason we wouldn't stick with what we had landed on a couple months ago, which I think was 120? You're the closest one to the numbers, so.
That was what you agreed on when Webster was here.
Right, 120.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the next week or the next meeting, you went to 100 and I can't remember why.
I don't remember that.
I think it had to do with the bag price.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, right. Okay. Okay, so thoughts on this number?
And you'll discuss it further next week anyways.
With Webster, yeah, but I think it'd be helpful if we all are on the same
On the same
page here.
page.
What, Thomas, didn't you say there was a range from about 125 to 130 that would ought to cover the waste
I
in the
mean,
green
but
bags?
potentially even higher. I mean, so the NRA numbers are kind of a little all over the map too. So like in their full cost accounting, they reference both $102 cost per ton for MSW, but then they also reference 117, and then they also reference matching Concords at 157.
Okay.
So it's kind of all over the map. And then the various ways that I've tried to run the numbers look mostly at, we know what our tipping fee is. So what is the cost of all of our operational expenses? That operational expenses isn't clearly broken down. You can look at it a bunch of different ways. So it really tried to look at how much cost are we putting into demolition and recycling costs, and how much cost are we putting into solid waste, and then try to figure out a split of how much operational expenses going into those various things. That can vary a little bit. The numbers I get from that can vary from 140 to 157 a ton. So it can kind of be a little all over the map. I think
So our 121 number may be
Low.
or right on target.
or it could be exactly right. I think one of the main arguments for leaving it towards the $100 range is that the cost of operating the transfer station is a cost that everybody shares. And then the cost of transferring that waste out is the additional cost of like what we should charge. I think one of the big arguments for going to the other side of the range is that we don't want to incentivize people, particularly commercial haulers or demo and construction debris, to be coming here as opposed to going to like an actual facility for that purpose. So yeah, that doesn't give a clear answer.
Yeah.
On what it should be. Yeah.
Okay, so 120 seems like it might make more sense than 100.
Agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to land there pending our discussion with Webster? I mean, I'm open. I just don't want to sit here spinning our wheels on this like mysterious number.
I mean, I feel like from what I have heard from Thomas on this and others is that the 120 to 130 range is maybe the sort of the Goldilocks zone, if you will, for this. And so I'd be comfortable, I think, anywhere in there to get feedback from Webster.
And I don't think I was here last time Webster was here. I don't know what number they were arguing for, but what their rationale was. You're probably the best person to summarize their opinion.
I don't want to, it was a while ago. I don't want to summarize everything, but they were, a lot of the conversation came to the fact that this is a rate that's being charged for pickup, and that seemed, it felt like that the opinion was that was something that happened more in Hopkinton, and so that number should be higher. I don't know.
We have 3/4 of the population, so everything happens more here.
I would agree.
I mean, if we just need a number to go to Webster. 120, let's say 120.
Yeah.
And get feedback. Just to your point about not spinning our wheels.
Mhm.
And this would apply to what?
This would apply to anyone who is, anyone who's not taking their own trash. So any commercial user, and then anyone who's taking over 400 pounds of trash and putting it into the hopper. So it would not apply to anyone who's going into like the construction debris or any of the yard waste. It'd only be stuff going into the hopper.
So residential waste from Webster would pay 120.
If it's being,
Transported by someone else.
yeah,
Or over 400
Or
pounds
400 pounds.
of residential waste.
And from Hopkinton,
Now,
No,
now hang
just
on,
Green
before you go
Bay.
away from that, 400 pounds. There's a different rate on this sheet for a pickup truck load or a one-ton pickup load, which is probably insufficient.
Where are you looking at, Jeff?
It's just right there, Steve, just below
Oh,
the,
passenger truck?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
that's for brush and stumps.
Russian stumps.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not
okay.
the, yeah.
Sorry.
I think I've read that a million times.
Wait, and then Ken, you had another question.
No, I was just trying to get a handle on the differentiation between waste coming from Webster and
Mhm.
Hopkinton.
And then residential waste that's in green bags, though picked up by a commercial hauler, is in its own. this
That is,
no longer
that
applies
is its
because,
own category right
right.
now, which is currently defined as $0.
right, because the green bags would be used in theory.
Yes.
But didn't you recommend rescinding that?
No, rescinding the exemption, so they would have to use green bags.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so since it's 6:29 and we have a 6:30 public appointment, I think we've covered all the big things to head into Webster with.
Yes, the only other one that I think is worth just discussing and nailing down is users who don't have a sticker and whether or not they're required to pay the tipping fee. I would personally recommend that they should be required to pay the tipping fee just to incentivize people to have stickers. The whole point of the stickers is that it's an easy way of enforcing the ordinances. Where if you don't follow it, you lose your sticker. And so if you have the option to do all the same privileges by just showing your ID, it kind of muddies the water a little bit, but.
And I would say you either have a sticker or you prove with an ID you're a resident or you don't come in. And once you're in, trying to separate people into you have to pay and you don't just
Fair.
seems like a nightmare.
That's fair.
Okay. All right. So, more to come on that. And we do have a 6:30 public appointment, but we will have public comment if people want to comment on trash issues. But first we have our 6:30 appointment with Jacques Belanger, North Shore Drive. Hi.
You can do both. Yeah.
I'm John Land, the surveyor, doing a couple projects in town. And, both of them happen to be my class at the village, so. Here talking about a little bit about what you'd like to see for improvement on that, or how we can work with that.
Will you just talking to the mic? I think it gets picked up. That's right. It's just, we are online, so it picks up better. Thank you.
All right, I got a couple of handouts for you here too, so.
Right.
You.
Thank you.
All right. The first one I want to talk to you about is Wayne and Elizabeth Ford. They own a property at the kind of at the intersection of South I think South Road and the old South Hopkinton Road, the one that goes through into Dunbarton. What they have is 7.12 acres. It's lot 18.2 on a little bit of a blow up we got there. For the tax map. What they'd like to do is subdivide a second house lot off the property. They've got a little over 7 acres. And I've talked to Karen briefly about this a little bit. We've had the wetlands map. Originally, this lot was broken off of 18.1, probably 25 plus years ago. And the wetlands were delineated. So we had the wetlands freshened up for that. I gave you all my copies. And what we originally wanted to do was just have that 50-foot access strip, use the old South Hopkinton Road alignment as our frontage and run up the westerly sideline for a driveway access to the back side, the back property. But because of the wetlands impacts, it's the wetlands we have to cross in 3 different places. It's pretty tough going. And makes it pretty difficult. We talked to Karen a little bit about it. And I guess what's happened in the past, what the town's done in the past is we'll keep that 50 feet of frontage on a class 5 road, but use the old Hopkinton alignment as our access point to go up to it. Currently, Wayne uses that road for his existing home. He's probably just shy of 300 feet up, probably 250 up to where his driveway forks off up until his house site. What we'd like to do is continue using that, go up a little bit beyond there. Use there's a stone wall in a section as a lot corner and break in into the new lot shortly beyond that. So it's about just about 400 feet. I gave you my copies.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to,
Yeah, I put the dimension on this 345 from the edge of South Road to where that wall intersection is on the old road level. Let go is probably another 150 feet beyond that. We could fork off and get into that new building site, into the new lot. So I guess what we'd like to do is just see what the town's preferences are, how they think we should do it, I guess. It is a class 6. It's going to be for a driveway. He's currently using it for a driveway to get to his current house.
Can I just ask, maybe
Sure.
you said this, but I was looking at the map, so I
Yeah.
missed it, but, so you want to make a new driveway cut into the new lot that's going to be subdivided, or share the driveway and sort of do a spur off the existing driveway?
Well, it would be a new driveway cut off of the old road alignment.
Okay,
It'd be kind of a common driveway on the old alignment up until to just shy of the utility pole 2256-1.
Yep.
Continue up beyond that to the south. Originally, we'd like to go further up there, but that's starting to get pretty leggy. We're about 345 feet, so I said that intersection of stone wall, so another 100 feet or so, 150 feet would put us to a point where we could jump the stone wall, kind of run parallel with the stone wall inside on the new lot. So we're off the town right away at that point. And we have 2 gaps in the wetland that we could jump through and not have any impact to the wetlands at all to get up to the new house site out back.
So just to be clear, you're not asking about upgrading the road from a class 6 to a class 5. You're asking for a building permit on a class 5,
Not class 6.
class 6, sorry.
Correct. Right. And basically improving the road, not for a driveway, but not to class 5 standards. It's private. He maintains it himself now. Same thing, it'd be beyond that. It'd be pretty much just a driveway, but it would be on the class 6 road line.
So you can authorize that with a liability waiver.
You know, something that shows how the lot would be subdivided.
Well, we do have, that's what I got this picture here. So it's, the line is not very dark, it's the existing one. Got it, sorry. We're both breaking it in half, so. Like I said, it's 7.12 acres altogether.
This is,
I know about.
Oh.
Can I say something?
So you're gonna help clarify? Yeah, sure. Thanks. Can you talk into a mic so we can pick you up?
Jack, correct me, but I don't think you're asking for a building permit on a class 6 road per se, because 50 feet of the frontage is off of the class 5. So he can get a building permit if he crosses the wetlands. He's just asking drive access off of the class 6. So I just wanted to differentiate that so that somebody doesn't think this is similar to the Boundary Road episode where they were just all on class 6, because that is not the case here. So Mr. Poor has frontage on class 5 and class 6 for his current residence. A former Board of Selectmen with liability waivers gave him permission to utilize the class 6 road for his driveway. So he's asking the same thing for this new lot.
But we don't do driveway permits though.
Yeah. The planning board has adopted driveway regs and has given the authority to the Public Works Department.
Right, so wouldn't the Public Works Department be authorizing the driveway?
This is the use of a class 6
Correct,
road,
for
which
driveway.
lies with the select board.
They
But-
have they have access to the class 6 road. If they're butters to the class 6 road, they can use the class 6 road.
If they what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If the driveway is coming off a class 6 road, you need to approve it. That's
Well,
added.
No, Public Works needs to approve it. So an abutter to a class 6 road can use the class 6 road.
Yeah.
And then the location of the driveway is done through the planning and Public Works. It's not, we don't, because we don't approve any other driveways. Is that specifically in the current driveway?
Nothing about class 6 in the current driveway regs. Oh, nor I don't think it says anything about class 5, but I could be wrong.
Right.
But I just wanted to let you know that this is not the same as the Boundary Road, that they do, the lot qualifies as a subdividable lot because he will have frontage on the class 5. He's just, and class 6, but to make up the 300, but what he's asking for is to avoid the wetlands crossings at those 2 significant points to be able to utilize his access to the lot off of the other one. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
do you have a sense where on the lot a house would be?
Up towards the back, high and back, and this is where we get kind of you got a bit of a steep grade coming in once you cross those wetlands, or get beyond those wetlands. Be further to the south on that, be the northerly line of 2-1.
Can you just, I'm visual here. So will you point out what we're talking about exactly? So is this the existing?
That's the existing home.
Okay,
That's
and
the
they got
paved
that,
line.
okay,
From here, this entire one is class 6,
gotcha,
and the boards maintain it as their driveway. They had permission to do it.
right, and so that's
Please.
that.
So what they'd like to do is continue using the class 6 to access the second point back here. Once we get to this point here beyond the stone wall, we put a jog on the line so we can jump across the stone wall and kind of skirt between the 2 wetlands, to avoid the wetlands impact, and come out to the back side as well.
And where's the frontage on the class 5 that Karen was
Down
saying?
here. We've got just a 50-foot, well, it's
56.
56, 68 or whatever. This long tail is actually connected together. This is our frontage on South Road.
That's the frontage on the class 5,
Correct.
okay. But because of their existing driveway here, they want to be able to just do the same thing, but for this lot here. Like,
Correct.
okay,
And that's to avoid these wetlands.
I see, okay, so that's the wetlands.
Yeah.
And maybe this may be a Karen question, maybe you know the answer to this, Neil, or perhaps you do, Jack, but, or is it Jacques or Jack?
Jacques.
Jacques, oh, sorry.
No problem.
So are we being asked for a building permit on class 6 road under 674-41, or just to authorize you to do work within the class 6 right of way.
just to access through the class 6 right away.
Okay, that's what I
We'll
thought.
have the frontage off of class 5.
No, but that's not, so, because you have access, you can use the class 6 road. The question is whether or not you can have a driveway there.
You can't upgrade it though without permission.
Because you're
What-
doing work within the class 6 road.
You can't, like, you couldn't make it a road, but you can make improvements for access. You can clear, like, you can clear debris to use it. So someone who doesn't have, someone who's not in a butter cannot clear any debris on a class 6 road, but someone who is in a butter further down the road can clear debris so that they can then access.
But they want to do more than cleared
Right.
degree, which needs written permission from the select board.
Karen, were you gonna
So
say
it's not it's not about the driveway access then, it's about the improvement.
It's permission to use it.
I mean.
No, because you don't need permission to use it,
Well,
you need permission to improve it,
Improve it, use it.
right, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what you said, without saying what you just said, Thomas. I didn't know that for a fact, so I apologize that I might have misled him. But it would be year-round use of the class 6 road as an alternative to crossing the wetlands on the class 5. And
But if you're gonna like improve it or pave it or change it in any way, then that would have to be.
no, it maybe have brush, can I approach you with some pictures?
Yeah, thank you.
So this right now is South Road. This is the class 6 road currently.
Mhm.
And so I'm gonna be going one more direction. I'm trying not to. This is his driveway now off of the class 6. So I don't know, because I didn't give him that depth of the conversation, but I don't know what brush is beyond his current driveway.
It's an unmaintained,
Oh,
single lane.
okay. So that may be.
It's not maintained, you said?
No, it's.
No.
Okay,
This,
right.
just for clarification, this is the road we walked last year.
Yep. Right.
Remember off of South Road?
Yes.
Right, well, right on the other side of that though, because this is looking towards South Road, right?
Correct.
Right on the other side of that is like brush.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what they
Mhm.
just said.
And just for clarification, he's creating a lot that only has, whatever it is, 68 feet of frontage on class 5 road.
Which is permissible,
It is.
yes.
What's the minimum requirement frontage for a subdivision?
300 there, but it doesn't say in the ordinance that it all has to be on class 5.
Oh.
So a good example is the Barton's Corner Road, the house that recently burned. They only have like 50 or less feet on the class 5, that's where their driving enters in. And the remainder of their frontage when that all is created is on the class 6.
Thank you.
And so there was a, I guess I don't, when was the approval given for the lot that's currently there?
They wait.
Mr. Four.
It's, it was 26 years ago.
Okay.
Feels like yesterday.
Look those records up there.
I guess my,
And now I've been there 50 years.
Yeah.
So,
I guess what I'm struggling with is how this doesn't fall under 674-41. But it sounds like at least on one occasion, that's how we treated the situation. I don't know if I agree with that. And that's obviously a slightly different sort of request, if that's what we're doing.
Trying to pull up 674 to refresh my memory on that.
That's the,
It's a fun one.
that gives the select board the ability to give a building permit on a class 6 road.
Right.
So
but-
like a very similar one would be what happened on,
About
no,
one on.
no, on the trail.
Buzz,
When the-
Buzzwell Corner?
No, it's
Oh, Graves.
Graves Road,
Graves.
thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Graves was another one that, yes, they have frontage on the left.
Yeah, so this would be exactly like Graves Road then, because they have a small amount of frontage on Fire Hill Road, but their driveway comes off Graves Road.
So wait, Stephen, it's 674, what, 40?
41.
Thank you.
There was a written agreement with Graves Road.
Correct.
Yeah,
Is that the liability waiver you're saying?
Yeah.
And there was one for, Old South.
oh yeah, this lot, Jacques, was it part of a subdivision plan?
It was in 98, they subdivided it, 18-1 and 18-2 apart.
Oh, so the one that you're asking for approval, it's already been approved by the planning board? That's what I'm asking. Has this new lot already been approved by the planning board?
No, we have not gone planning board. In 98, I think it was Wayne actually, maybe in a partner, owned the property his house is on, and I think you built a house in the lot to the west of you. Right. You subdivided that one.
Okay,
Yeah. And
but you're going to the planning board though?
we will, with your permission from here, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's,
We're looking for permission, an avenue to get an access point, really, without any wetlands.
okay, and I ask because that's relevant under 674-41, because if you get subdivision approval and the subdivision shows the access over this road, then it's not so much up to this board to issue the building permit. As long as the planning board approves it, it falls under one of the exceptions to 674-41.
So if this lot didn't have the frontage at all on a class 5, it would put us in a different, it would put us squarely in
Yep.
674, but because it has the frontage on the class 5, it brings us into this realm of like, we're actually not issuing a building permit for a class 6 road.
But I think we are. I think that's what they're asking for. And the distinction I make is that, yes, they had 50 foot of frontage on a class 5 road. But I read 674-41 as saying, you know, you need your driveway access to be from that class 5 frontage. In order to automatically be eligible for the building permit. If you're getting your access from something other than class 5 frontage, like they are here, they're gonna get access from class 6 road. Then you have to follow the further requirements under 674-41 and come to us and ask for approval for a building permit. And it sounds like maybe that didn't happen for Mr. Poor earlier, and so I'm sort of curious about that earlier instance. So yeah,
The one from 26 years ago?
26 years ago, yeah. Although he had, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, I think it may have been misinterpreted, back.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it was, another way, nothing else was done other than what we just indicated.
Yeah.
The town may have misheard.
I'm trying to remember what the requirement was for Graves Road. And whether or not it was more than just a liability waiver, or if it required them to maintain upkeep.
Generally, there's a requirement in that agreement that requires upkeep for emergency access and things like that.
Right.
So it's not just a liability, it's a longer agreement than that.
So I think what you're saying is that you're gonna go to the planning board and get approval for the new lot. And you wanna put the driveway over this class 6 road. And you wanna make sure that
Not-
we're,
Not over, attached to the class 6 road.
okay, attached.
coming-
Oh, yes,
On,
coming off of the class 6, yeah, Smith.
Yeah.
You're gonna, whatever they said, over this class 6 road. And you just want to make sure that we're gonna give you approval to make the improvements within the class 6 right of way that the planning board approves you for.
Correct.
Okay,
We just want that as our access point.
okay. I think,
So we're not giving them a building permit.
correct,
We're giving them approval to construct a driveway off Class 6 road.
right, and the planning board,
We're giving them approval to,
Ask the planning board.
to make improvements.
to make
in the class-
improvements to
That's
the
it.
class 6 road so that they can access their driveway off of.
And as far as the specifics of what improvements are necessary on the class 6 road, I think that's probably a better topic for the planning board to dictate. And I think they just need approval from us saying that if the planning board approves it, you know, we also approve whatever the planning board thinks is appropriate.
It goes back to, I think the planning board would be worried that they would be overstepping, you know, and so I'm sure they would ask the job to, have you talked to the select board, you know?
Yeah, I guess my thought was that, you know, if this is gonna be a new lot and it's gonna be before the planning board, you know, I think they may be in a better position to require certain improvements over the class 6 road, through the class 6 road, whatever, to make sure that the passage to the new lot is safe and adequate.
So I'm going through all of the notes from the Class 6 Roads Committee. It might be helpful. Do you want me to summarize them?
Sure.
On this road?
Yes.
So originally, the notes from the road is that this becomes a really kind of great access from the Dunbarton side, and not a great access from the Hopkinton side. It also came up in previous conversations. Someone actually requested converting the whole road to a class 5 so that further on lots could then be developed.
And that was gonna cost like.
That was
half
gonna
a million
be,
dollars.
yeah, that's like
Yeah.
a lot of road for not a lot of anything. So we didn't go anywhere with that. The conversation came up with the Class 6 Roads Committee as to whether or not we should convert it to a Class 8 trail. It was determined that that was not a necessary thing. All of the conservation access around it was already kind of conserved, and there wasn't a lot of value to the trail system to adding it in. So that wasn't a primary concern. At the end of the Class 6 Roads Committee, there was discussion about a building policy and recommendations for a starting point to a building policy. Generally, as a starting point, it is recommended that it should a starting point for allowance should be within 300 feet of a class 5 road. There should be a clear waiver of liability. There should be a clear line of application requirements for improvement of the road, timeline for the application, so that it's not in perpetuity. And then having planning board comments which specify approving the driveway location, utilities access, emergency access, wetlands, and other planning features that they typically do. And then having DPW approve road construction prior to building. Other things that have come up in other class 6 roads building policies, which again, this wouldn't be a building application, this would be just for improving the road. Is having a bond for the road, which kind of complicates things. And in this case, because there's nothing happening further down it, probably doesn't apply. But that was the quick summary of the Class 6 Roads Committee.
And I think if I'm understanding what they're wanting to do, the road policy recommendations to issue a building permit, I don't think are applicable here.
Right. It's more about the road portion of it that's.
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought you were saying, like, I was trying to summarize what Karen said, which is we're not in a building permit realm because they have the frontage on the class 5. And then you said you disagreed that we're squarely under 670.
Yeah, and I misunderstood what they were
Oh.
wanting to do.
Okay, because now,
Yeah.
now I'm thinking about if we were in the 674 realm, it means it would actually be us as the governing body that grants it after review and comment by the planning board.
Yeah.
Okay, but
674 it's a lovely statute.
Yeah,
This is
it
why we're under 674-41 no matter what.
Mhm.
The way that the statute works is that if your driveway is gonna be off of a class 5 road, that's like the gold standard.
Right.
Okay, that's like the simplest, most cleanest way to pull a building permit. You know, my driveway is off a South Road, you know, you just comply with the building code and the zoning ordinance, and then you're all set. There's some other ways you can get a building permit under 674-41. One of those is if you're creating a new lot and the planning board approves your access over a class 6 road. That I think that's what I believe Jacques confirmed is what they're trying to do. Go to the planning board, create a new lot, you know, be very upfront with the planning board and say, you know, our driveway is gonna be via this class 6 road and not from the class 5 portion of South Road. If the planning board approves it, arguably that means the planning board deemed whatever access improvements they require are sufficient. And so they get their building permit. If it's a lot that doesn't have planning board approval, then it comes to us under a different section of 674-41, and all the considerations that Thomas just mentioned would go into whether we decide the class 6 access is safe and adequate.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we need to get into, in other words, the specifics of what precise improvements are needed or sufficient necessarily. I think that's probably better for the planning board to do when they do the subdivision review process for this. And hopefully the, you know, the planning board would have input from Dan, from the fire department, and whoever else the planning board for this is relevant before they come to a final decision.
And the reason this can be subdivided at all is because of the frontage on the class 5 road.
Because our zoning says you can have 50 feet. Yeah,
Right, so that's the distinction from boundary from a couple of years ago.
So, yeah. So based on all of that, and then also, so Graves, the house on Graves Road is like almost a carbon copy of this issue. So based on all of that, I would say I generally agree that if the planning board approves it with specifics on how the road needs to be improved
and maintain.
and maintained, as long as it also has that liability waiver, then that would make sense. I also think it's very, very important that it's very clear that the driveway acts, that the improvements to the road are not a driveway, that it's a class 6 road. And that people can use that access to then continue on that trail. Because the one thing that I think is worth mentioning is basically right off of this, where the driveway might be, that kind of past portion of it becomes a really nice trail. The first part of the trail is rough. The last part of the trail is actually really nice. And it has happened several times in the past where people have improved sections of class 6 road, but then make it look exactly like a driveway. And there's a really good example, Barton Corner Road. Barton Corner Road from one side is really great and you walk into the woods and it's a wonderful trail. And on the other side, it feels like you're walking through someone's yard, which is very strange. So I think it's just worth mentioning that it is still a class 6 road.
Crossroad is another one.
And again, a distinguishing factor for these lots down here, which we discussed when somebody brought forward the proposal to convert, is like, they would actually have to convert the road because they don't have any class 5 frontage. I'm
And
just
they
saying
were-
that out loud.
Yes.
Okay,
And the request was for the town to
to
upgrade. the road.
upgrade, and it was gonna be very expensive, yes.
I think
no.
Karen, something.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll pass on to the planning board and I'm sure Jeff will and whatnot about the liability waiver or
Yes.
not waiver, I guess waiver. But if for some reason it's overlooked at the planning board level, are we permitted to add it to our building permit requirement? Or does it have to come, do I need to make
The
sure?
liability waiver, you mean?
Yes,
It has to come from us.
I think it should come from, yeah.
from the
that's correct. Yeah.
building permit part of it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. I just want to make sure,
No, not the building permit, the liability waiver.
the liability waiver comes from, okay, if I'm at the planning board and some reason there's a big discussion on it and they say, oh, it should be a select. I just want to make sure. All right, thank you.
So the board still has to give written permission to upgrade the road. And a liability waiver would be in place prior to you giving permission. So that's the check and the balance.
When would the abutters come into the process? If they have any issues?
Planning
The
board.
planning board, because they have to notice the subdivision application hearing to the abutters.
Okay, I'm just, thinking that this wasn't noticed here
Right.
for this meeting, so that's,
And I think we don't have to do anything
Mhm.
until this goes to the planning board and, gets approved.
Sounds like though in concept, provided the planning board approves it, the board, I think that's probably what
Yes.
you're looking for.
I think approves it with specific requirements for the improvements.
Okay. And that was the easy one you said?
Yeah, wait, we might need a motion on that.
Well, we're not making any decisions right now, right? I mean, we're
I
not.
think it's noted in the minutes that conceptually you.
So John, just hope they're all still here when you get through.
So we'll have to come back before you after the subdivision?
Because we will have to do the liability waiver. Yeah.
Will do.
Yes,
Yeah.
and a vote on authorizing the improvements within the class 6 right of way as approved by the plan.
Right.
Before
If
March. Different opinion.
Right, we're good?
Yeah, I guess we're good on that one.
Find my North Shore Drive.
Okay, ready? I've been visiting with the planning board with this one once already. Just kind of bounce it off them and just start on it. This is North Shore Road.
We can share one. Keep one for yourself.
Yeah, one for yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do.
Thank you.
No, I know. I was like, oh, my other side, got it, sorry. Yeah, got it.
Our picture. All right. This is North Shore Road, the class 6 road, and it accesses, the north end of the pond over there. What it is a couple from out of state bought it, and their dream is to eventually move up here, and they've got a family and have live in Hopkinton with their kids. And the goal would be just to break off some frontage lots. This is totally a class 6 road. It accesses the boat ramp onto Clement Pond, and is beyond that, I counted them before, but I think there's 20 plus camps and homes and whatnot on the other side of this road. Yes, it's currently privately maintained. Altogether, there's over 100 acres and 2 tracts of land they bought. It comes off of Bound Tree Road. So I guess what we need to come before you is to find out what they need to do to upgrade, I guess, North Shore Road to a standard that is acceptable to, I guess, to bring it up to a class 5. Or so they can pull building permits off it. Currently, it's a single lane. There might be a couple areas where people can pass. Power runs kind of meanders down the road in the woods and back onto the road. And again, people live out, there's camps on the other side of this road, on the pond itself. It doesn't, I don't believe it's passable all the way through. I think there's a break in the road before it comes out on the other side.
There's a house in the road.
There's a house in the road.
On the private section.
But I guess what we're here is to discuss what they have to do to make something happen out there.
They need a variance for this?
Well, it's upgrading to class 6, so it's,
So that,
and to what standards they have to
so that,
bring it up to your standards that work.
so option 1 is we vote to change it to a class 5. And then we change it to a class 5, and then now it's at a class 5 standard,
And they don't need a variance.
then you don't need a variance.
Yeah.
Option number 2,
But to change it to class 5, you can't just vote. Yeah, you would have to lay out a.
we have to lay out a road.
Right.
Yes.
Just to be
Yes.
clear, it's
No,
not.
it's not just, hey, guys, the road. Option number 2 is, you go to town meeting to do the same thing. I'm gonna stare at Neil as I do this.
Isn't there a third option?
There's many more options. Option number 3 is you, apply for building permits to the select board, and then allow you to have building permits on class 6 road. I actually think that actually might be the only three. But you wouldn't,
except they're not subdivided yet.
right?
Option 4.
I thought there was a fourth. There
Or
is.
would be like the last one, the planning board approves this,
Laid out.
yeah,
And then,
and conditions it on either laying out the road or
yeah.
accepting all of the improvements, then it's like the other one.
So, sorry.
Yeah, how did,
Wait,
but it's different on a class 6 than just
and they don't
laying
have
out
the
a
frontage
new
on the
road.
class 5.
And I thought this was allowed by some, oh, that's right, that's right. But no, they couldn't do that unless they also, go ahead. Ken.
I don't know, but what brings them here is, what are the legal requirements to lay out by the planning board, a new road, town road over an existing class 6 road? And I'm assuming it needs your permission or town meeting permission, so that's what brings them here. I highly doubt the planning board would approve with improvements, it remaining class 6. Jock did indicate that there is a 50-foot right of way up to the to the private road, right, Jock?
Up to.
The boat ramp?
The boat ramp.
Yes, the state actually laid out this as a class 6 road to the boat ramp a number of years ago. So it was, my conversation with him is going to the plan.
The state didn't make the class, it was class 6 before that. The state has access to,
I think
because they have the land that abuts it.
Yeah,
No, they deeded it to us.
Layout. And straight.
it's a weird thing.
Yeah,
It's a road to a lake, public access, and it used to have a different category and then they all became class 6. So that's
Right,
why it's
okay.
class
Yeah.
6.
Was it a class 6 from the other side? Cause
It's private.
no, it's all private.
because on some map, on some very old maps, it's listed as all the way across.
It was.
Okay.
At one point, up the private section.
Yeah.
And then somebody built a road in the middle of the road.
So do we, I believe it's designated as an emergency road. Do
Mm.
we maintain it or does the state maintain it?
Don't believe it is an
It's-
emergency
it's
road.
pretty Nice, it's pretty nice all the way to the boat launch. Somebody must do something to it.
The association, of the cottages on North Shore Drive, they maintain.
They maintain it, okay.
It's not possible by 2 vehicles a fire truck can't get out there. Ambulance, Jeff just said an ambulance could barely get out there. They've been asked to trim back trees and they haven't. So I'm sure the planning board will ask that this be a class 5. But the question is their ability to allow a layout over new class 5 road over an existing class 6. There was conversation at a conceptual meeting with the planning board of the applicant's ability possibly to lay out a new town class 5 road adjacent to the class 6 road because they own all the way up. The thought was, why not utilize the existing road rather than laying out a new class 5 road adjacent to the class 6? I just was not able to explain the legal ramifications or possibilities with respect to the class 6.
At least for me, based on all the conversations with the class 6 roads for the last 2 years, 3 years. This to me feels like something that would have to be done at town meeting.
Mhm.
I would feel very uncomfortable doing it here.
I think if they submit a petition to lay out the road,
Oh, right, yeah.
you know, we have to go through the process, so it's kind of up to them.
And how long is this segment of road?
It's almost 3,000 feet to get to the boat ramp, so it's a ways to get in there. Another one that kind of makes it awkward is you're building a road, usually you're developing on both sides. This is basically, they're building a road, developing on one side of it. So it's kind of a lot.
If you guys were gonna do a layout to make this class 5 for whatever amount of length you needed.
Mhm.
I mean, would the developer be paying the cost to upgrade the road, or would you be asking the town? to do
I
that?
think it falls on the developer. I doubt the town's gonna jump into that.
Well, I mean, not saying yes or no, just
Yeah.
curious of what you
Yeah.
guys are
I
thinking.
just assume the town wouldn't be paying for it.
Okay.
have you had any conversation with the owner of the property on the other side of the road?
No, we haven't.
I
No.
think he is opposed.
Is opposed?
Yes, and I own one of the cottages further down on the private road, and there's been discussion in the past about should the association try to seek improvements to the road, and the thought was generally no, they don't want it.
The abutter or the association?
Hmm?
The abutter or the
The
association?
the abutter is part of the
Is
association.
part of it. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
And they would be notified as an abutter. However, the 50-foot right of way allows the layout over that portion of the abutter owns. Whether they, if the planning board approves it or not, or approves it, I should say. So I don't know if the owner knows that there is a 50-foot right of way there, even though it's 12 feet wide, the car path. So the town could go in and do, or they could do ditching if it's approved as a layout.
But a class 6 road, I don't think the planning board can lay out a road over a
That's
town,
what I'm here to find out.
over a town road. It's because it's a class 6 road, it's different.
Yeah, how do we find that out from? Because like, where, how the plan, who do we, or
There's-
is the planning board?
There's 2 ways to convert, only 2. A
I didn't
class,
convert. I
a
said
class
get
6
building
road,
permit.
town meeting vote, or the select board
Right.
laying out of the petition process. So those are the 2 ways.
Okay, so then I should have guided him that the planning board should not even look at this, because there's no way to lay this road out by the planning board like they would on their conventional road.
I mean,
That's why we're here, to figure that
I
out.
think Neil's answer is correct. I think if the goal is to make this class 5.
Right,
To enable this subdivision to happen, then it's either town meeting vote or a layout petition to this board.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, then, okay, that, good. Then
If
that-
If the planning board lays out a road, does the select board still have to accept it?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, same thing.
but. it's
Not
a
over a class 6.
Yeah.
That's why it's different.
Well, because it doesn't exist. Right, so like. Making a class, like anything that makes a class 5 needs to be accepted by select board. So like a class 6 to a class 5 or laying out a new class 5. Those are effectively the same things. Yeah, they're very different. Okay, got it.
So would this be, would this be an upgrading of a class 6 to a class 5? Is that?
You did the layout option.
Right.
Yes.
And
I think
what-
that would be
What type of standards would that be to?
What are our class 5?
What would it
standards?
be?
So here's the issue.
You're
though.
coming off of.
If
the
you-
dirt road.
The issue is that if it gets converted from a class, if there's a vote by the town to convert it from a class 6 to a class 5, doesn't have anything to do with the developer. The town would then need to change it to a class 5 road. Right? I mean, if the town votes, it has nothing to do with planning, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just the town now saying this is gonna be a class 5 road. and then
That's right, but I think the conversation at town meeting would be,
who's gonna pay for it?
well,
Mhm,
who's gonna pay
yeah.
for it and what are the upgrades going to be? And that would probably sway the vote one way or the other.
But there's no, but that vote doesn't have a, that vote is a converting a class 6 to a class 5. That vote is
Yes.
not converting a class 6 to a class 5 with money from these resources. It would just,
But there's no statutory required standard of what it would mean to maintain that as a class 5. So so it doesn't automatically mean the town would upgrade it. The town would, if it were class 5, they'd leave it just the way it is.
I mean, that becomes really problematic though, because then it's a class 5 road that the planning board can issue building permits to, which then those abutters can then require us to upkeep it to a standard that's required.
Yes.
So,
That's all part of the conversation
Right.
at town meeting
right.
about whether it's a good idea.
But none of that has any requirement by a potential abutter to do the improvements.
Unless the town water meeting was rented.
We're doing one at Dunbarton right now. Down, oh, it's a class 6. It's basically these people upgrading 600 of a class 6, 600 feet of a class 6 road at their expense to the typical road design standards, less pavement. So that particular one will be 26 feet of travel way from side to side before it breaks to.
Is that for one house or for a subdivision?
It'll be two lots.
Two lots.
They're subdivided, they are subdivided.
Because in that scenario, it would be similar to the other one where you could petition to have a subdivision. And then the select board could issue a building permit pending upgrades of the class 6 road to the requirements. And then once they're updated to the requirements, then the select board could accept it as a class 6 road or lay it out as a class 5 road after it's already been subdivided, built on, improved, and then the select board could then say, okay, now it's a class 5, we'll take over maintenance of it.
That's what they're doing.
Right. But that's a very different process than going to this town meeting and saying, we're gonna vote to change it from class 5 to a class 6 to a class 5.
I think you have two options. It's either town meeting or layout petition.
I think layout by petition would be the route that they go if they chose to go. at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And then we have all those, that's what we went through with the Dumbarton class 6, where we go through all the factors.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
I can send, we have that all pretty well down. I can send you the requirements for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't have, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have class 5 road standards. But for a dirt road though?
So I can't answer that completely. We purposely, you say that I believe we may. The only reason that we had one situation on Patch Road, which I can't recall the name of the nice road on Kessler.
Yeah.
Which led the planning board to say, why did we require a paper gravel road? And then it said, the new language is if it's a scenic road if it's a new subdivision road off of a scenic road, it does not need to be paved.
Okay.
So
Is Boundary Road a scenic road?
I don't know, to be honest.
Do you know? if it
I
is?
can't,
I'd have to look at my list.
Yeah,
I haven't- But purposely, so we don't end up out of nowhere like the Patch Road.
Yeah.
And you have this nice paved 26, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have in our ordinance also, ordinance and subdivision, that it has to be a road to 4 lots, so the town is not spending funds to maintain for one house. Or 2 houses.
Okay, so you'll send info about the options, okay. And we'll see what happens.
Oh, is that helpful?
I don't know.
Thank you.
I think we all tried.
the first one was easier, wasn't it?
You want your maps back?
Thank you.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's just.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in. Thanks, Karen, for helping clarify.
Neil, you want me to shut this off somehow? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Public comment before we.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for bearing with us. We will move our public comment up. We do have new business to get through, but we can move up public comment. So if anyone wants to comment on trash or class 6 roads or anything you want, now's your chance. Bonnie?
Sit down. Guess what I'm commenting on?
Class 6 road.
No trash. I already put in my 2 cents on that. We've been talking, as you know, for a long time in the Waste Reduction Committee about reducing our waste. we've talked about looking at the state goal of reducing 25% by 2030, I think, is the first level. And we've looked at all the different operational techniques that could get us to that goal. And it occurred to me that as you guys have your conversations about this, it might be helpful both for you and for the public to have a framework that each of these management and operational things fits into. And I would pose 3 questions for each thing. Is it going to reduce our tonnage? Is it going to reduce taxes for the taxpayers? And is it going to reduce our impact on climate change? Because I think, I'm not speaking for the committee because we haven't had a meeting to discuss this, but I think those are the 3 things that keep coming back to us. And I think it would help people understand when you make decisions, especially raising prices on things. The reason we're doing this is because I'm guessing that most people don't know how much waste we produce. I'm guessing that people don't know how much it impacts their taxes, and I'm guessing that they have no idea the impact on climate change. I think of something like curbside pickup. I mean, we've talked about that, just sort of touched on it from the basis of the 2014 report, which recommended curbside pickup. But it didn't give what I would think is one of the biggest considerations for doing that, which is, in my mind, it makes more sense to have one truck going around and picking up everywhere, and maybe even not taking it to our transfer station, but taking it directly to Rochester or Pennacook to the incinerator or the landfill, and not even having to have them go into our transfer station. That would make a lot more sense from a climate change perspective than having, I don't know how many, you're good with numbers, Thomas. I don't know if you have an estimate of how many cars in a given week vehicles, not just cars, go back and forth, not only creating a lot of wear on the roads, but all of those carbon emissions.
But wouldn't they have to still do it for recycling?
Not if we included recycling in the curbside pickup, which was in the 2014 report.
Okay.
The options contained recycling as well. And one of the,
Options
one of,
just
one
single
of the,
stream,
I'm sorry?
were those options just single stream recycling?
I think the ones in the 2014 report were, and the second one was, it estimated that an increase, it would bring our recycling rate up in the 40 to 50% range. Whereas last year we sunk to an all-time low of 13%.
What's the second one you're referring to?
Well, there were 3 options, and Thomas, you probably have looked at the report more recently than me, but one option is to have manual pickup with recycling, single stream recycling, and green bags. Another one is manual pickup, meaning somebody gets out of the truck and dumps it into the truck with single stream recycling and not using green bags. And then the third one is automated pickup with those big like Casella and Waste Management trucks that have the arm that comes and picks up your thing and dumps it in. Nobody has to even get out of the truck. And so it gave prices for all of those, and it also, looked at the recycling results that we would get. So, I mean, there was a time when I never thought I would be saying this because we've been such advocates of source separation on recycling. But when you look at the big picture, which is what my comment is about, the big picture and framing this conversation and these decisions, single stream recycling, at least we'd have recycling. It would be picked up. It wouldn't be blowing all over the roads. We wouldn't have this constant irritant of people putting things in the wrong place and all the waste that is blowing into the wetland. There are pros and cons, and people tend to think with single stream, you actually end up with less recycling. I don't know if that's actually true. And so if we just had trucks picking it up and not even taking it to the transfer station, like going straight to Rochester or wherever their destination was, then wouldn't it make sense to look at the savings that we would have on staff, wear and tear? We wouldn't have to be just spent a lot of money on a new compactor. We have a plan to rebuild the whole recycling shed. We wouldn't have to do that. I mean, all of these things would be gone, not to mention the huge frustration and time suck that this has been for the select board and both towns. So I just wanted to put in a plug for building a framework for discussion, and I would advocate for actually setting some goals. Our goal is to reduce our waste 25% by 2030. You know, we went up again last year. We're just going up and up and up. And if we don't set a goal, we're never going to get there. So.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your comments. If anyone online wants to say anything, you can just raise your hand too. Hey.
Evening, Lauren Clement, 86 Maple Street. Been listening to the trash conversations for 14 years here or so. And more recently, the work session and the last couple meetings that you discussed on, and I watched them online. And I guess I have some confusion, which it seems like we keep going round and round and round of on a few things. And one is if Hopkinton's buying the green bags and that's paying for the disposal, how much does Webster contribute, and how do you factor that in their usage to be a fair price for the amount of waste they put in? I'm not sure if I don't even know if Webster co-owns the building with us or if it is solely ours. And I guess that would be an answer that's unclear.
Sure, it's jointly owned and it's proportionate to, I believe, population. And the expenses are split, you know, based upon that proportion. And then any revenue we get from green bags is 100% utilized against the Hopkinton portion only.
Okay, I guess that clarifies some of that billing thing. I guess a follow-up question is the conversation of not having a receiving local waste from a commercial hauler here in town. To me, I feel they're doing a community service. Again, similar points that Bonnie just made. You've got less foot traffic there on Saturday mornings. It's one vehicle picking up a bunch of people in town and then dropping it off. And if they're paying the tipping fees plus a 10% and not anymore, then I don't understand how that doesn't cover it. I guess I don't understand how, if someone even came into our facility from Concord, how that is, and they say they were on this end of town. In the same sense, if someone was on the Henniker end of town and Henniker said, sure, you can dump here and pay the tipping fee plus to cover operational fees, but in theory, you're not driving from, say, College Hill Road all the way over to the other side of town. If someone in Concord was to do the same thing, how that is advantageous to the town? If we're covering the cost.
So right now, though, I think the issue is people coming from outside of town who are just using the dump for free.
I got that part.
Yeah. And then on the commercial piece, I think the discussion of no longer accepting commercial hauling is not on the table, though I would note we're one of the very few small towns that runs our own transfer station that accepts commercial waste. I think our discussion was centered around the exception that was granted a couple of years ago for residential pickup and not using green bags. And so to go back to how it was for years, which was all residential Hopkinton trash had to be in a green bag. And so I think that's what we're discussing, is going back to that way of being, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, that exception was just granted due to the pandemic.
I followed the pandemic part there. Another question that you guys didn't, it was discussed at the work session, but I didn't hear about today. I have a company truck that's registered in Concord. It has a Henniker dump sticker on it because as part of my work, I go to Henniker. I would utilize that truck to come to the transfer station, but not get a registration. And it'd be nice to get that figured out, so I don't have to, I clearly am a resident and I may use our other truck, but if I'm using that truck, I should be able to use that truck or brush or whatnot.
I think that gets at our discussion about just showing ID to show you're a
Or-
resident.
Or more specifically, you'd be able to get a sticker by showing your tax.
Yeah.
By your property registration.
So I could get a sticker
You
on the
could get a
truck.
sticker.
That's the ultimate. Obviously, I understand encouraging getting stickers because everybody's kind of got laxed on that. I thought I had one more on here. Sorry. I guess I will let follow-uppers. Yeah.
All right.
In the notes. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. I see Amanda Gilman's hand is up. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for doing this tonight. I just need to reiterate first quickly what Lauren said about the notion of prohibiting commercial haulers. In my humble opinion, it would be very anti-business and not at all what we want to do in Hopkinton. I feel like we should be in the mindset of promoting our businesses, since we have a 90% residential, 10% commercial tax base. So anything we can do to help our businesses, maybe not give them special treatment, but we should in no way be restricting their ability to go to the transfer station. I think it's great that we allow them to. So I'd like to see that continue. Two, the green bag program, in my humble opinion, is a failed program. I emailed you all previously on this, and I do believe, I did hear that there was a considerable amount of email and people against the green bags. And so I'm surprised that you're, again, doubling down on this program with like as I like humbly call it, the trash police. That is what Henniker called it when I studied it in Henniker, and none of the transfer station employees wanted to be the trash police. They said it was the most negative job that they could imagine embarking upon and wanted nothing to do with it. I do think a public hearing about the green bags is in order. I understand Thomas's point about trying to make the program work first, but I think the appetite and the temperature in the town on green bags in general might be markedly different than it was when the town approved the program years ago, especially in light of a proposed drastic bag increase. I also want to echo some of what Bonnie just said, because I studied this in Henniker on a similar committee. And we found the same things in Henniker, that single stream recycling is single-handedly the best way to increase recycling and reduce your waste stream, which it appears is very much Bonnie's goal and the goal of her committee, the Waste Reduction Committee. Green bags in and of themselves do not reduce waste nearly as much as single stream recycling and, to Bonnie's point, curbside pickup. So the goal, Bonnie made some good points about where we need to be, and we should be thinking about where we're going, and in my opinion, not doubling down on this already failed program. We need to kind of look for a path forward to the future. We also need to think about what we're doing to our middle income and our lower income families. This new trash bag increase is completely prohibitive for some families in a time when may already be struggling. So I'm hoping that the select board takes all of that into consideration, and I very much would like to see a public hearing on whether to continue green bags or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, and I think just to respond to a couple of things, I appreciate the point about doubling down. And I think we're in an awkward position. I think it was noted earlier that because green bags were sort of created at town meeting and they've been voted on repeatedly at town meeting over the years, I think we feel sort of like we're not in the position to just decide whether or not to end it. And so it feels like because we're in the sort of the middle of the year now, that it makes sense to try to make it work the best way we can. So I understand characterizing it as like doubling down, but I think we're in a position where we don't have a lot of great options with green bags, and it makes the most sense for this moment to try to make it work the best way we can. And appreciate your comments about pricing. I think it's a point well taken. I'd also just note we have not increased the pricing ever, and it's been, I don't know how many years now. Over 14, yes, 14 years. And I think curbside pickup, these are things we want to continue to look into and discuss. I think that Webster does introduce a challenge for us because it's not like when we make a decision, it just applies to Hopkinton. I mean, we always have to consider the fact that Webster is going to be able to do their own thing. And so we wouldn't be able to shut down the dump to people coming in with their own trash, because Webster would continue to need to be able to use it. And I also am just curious, I mean, I have not looked into this, but I've sort of heard things about single stream recycling not actually helping recycling. I think it probably helps with people getting recycling and plastic out of the house, but in terms of how it actually works at like wherever it's taken to, I feel like I've read some things. I would need to refresh my memory, but yeah, that like it actually leads to just increased trash, but people feel good about it because they're putting it into, a separate bag or whatever. So anyway, there's appreciate your comments and paying attention to this issue. And I think all of these things are worth looking into and definitely more discussion. But unfortunately, none of them are like super straightforward or easy at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, there was a comment about low-income customers, particularly in the existing ordinance. It says bags shall be available at no or low cost based on need to low-income residents through the Human Services Department. The number of bags allocated shall be based on the number used by a similarly sized household which recycles. So I think it was recognized originally.
I was gonna read the exact same vision. So, if you're okay.
Like the way you think.
Oh, Amanda, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. You are correct in single stream recycling. The quality of the recyclables that come out of it, because they're mixed and they're not clean, is not nearly the same as the quality of the recyclables that happens from separation as we do. So single stream is not really like the recycler's dream. If your goal is the recycling and the purity of your products, then you do a better job, and you also get a small amount of revenue when you do the clean recyclables separated as we do. But it does reduce your waste stream at the house. And I did go see a single stream recycling facility in Maine. We toured it. So I know very well what I'm talking about. And yes, it is not all clean, and some of it does get thrown back into the waste stream. But the overall amount that goes there is increased. And so it's a kind of a cost benefit ratio, how much you're actually losing. And that is a matter, I think, of opinion. I don't know that they didn't have a number for us at the time of how much you were actually losing by them being, quote, dirty at the facility, except in the cases of paper. Paper is definitely best, and cardboard definitely best left not put into mixed use recycling.
Oh, thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Catherine.
Hi, Catherine Mitchell, Boundary Road. I just have a question about the price of the bags and the level of the increase. I do know that the price should have been increasing, probably year over year or at some interval, and it hasn't, so we need to catch up with that. But when the program was initially begun, the thinking was that the transfer station, basically the station, capital expenditures, the overhead, staffing, all of that was to support the public interest of being able to get rid of our trash, our demolition debris, everything else. And that the price of the bags should cover only the tipping fees and the transportation to remove the trash. So that taxpayers would pay for having the transfer station there, but individual users would pay based on their individual amounts of trash. I'm a little concerned with such a large jump at once, and part of that jump is because we're now looking at including the overhead costs of dealing with the trash as well. And I think there might be less pushback if the increase wasn't such a significant one all in this one year. So there's that point. And the other, I guess I have a question. Thomas, you had said at some point that about 25% of households in Hopkinton have their trash picked up by haulers who don't use our transfer station. Is that correct? That was the estimate?
I believe my estimate is that roughly 50% use haulers, and roughly half of those haulers are not in town. So that'd be 25%
Right.
in town haulers, correct?
And we split, well, when you look at the tipping fees and the transportation, that's split 75%, 25%. And I've gotten the sense that Webster doesn't use haulers that haul things out of their town. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I haven't been able to find any good information about like Webster versus Hopkinton, but everything that I have found shows that they're the same. Their usage numbers, their traffic numbers, their compliance numbers, everything roughly matches out the same.
So they might have a similar percentage of their residents who have their trash hauled out of town.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was just questioning whether the 75-25% ratio is accurate if we're hauling a lot of stuff out of town and they're not.
I wouldn't have any reason to suspect otherwise.
Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jesse Morrill, Buzzwell Corner Road, also mentioned traffic. In reference to raising the tipping fee and the bag price to match. If the green bag price is to match the tipping fee, then what is the difference between what comes off my truck paying the tipping fee versus the customer using the green bag? It's still being paid the same.
Well, in this case, the green bag isn't just the tipping fee because the green bag isn't the $93. In this case, the green bag price is the tipping fee plus the operational expense for all of the other stuff that goes into the transfer station.
Right, but you're also, sorry, talking about raising the tipping fee for myself or anybody who comes in. So you're saying you raise the tipping fee for any of us, plus you're also raising the price of the bag to meet that tipping fee, to make them equal.
I think in the most simple case, everybody uses green bags and there are no taxes for the transfer station. Everything is paid for via green bags. So whether or not those green bags are coming from haulers or curbside pickup or people are bringing them to the transfer station, the green bag price would cover the entire cost of all of everything that happens at the transfer station. So that everybody is paying for their portion of the waste. You use more, you pay more. And so in that scenario, well, ideally there would be a curbside pickup where that cost is also being covered by the green bags. If in the absence of a unified curbside pickup, then the only thing that we can then do is have all of the green bag costs cover everything other than the physical transport of the trash. So the green bag cost would cover everything that is at the transfer station. So the cost of the tipping plus all of the operational cost. And then it starts to get more complicated from there as you enter in the 9 or so different waste streams that we have coming to the transfer station. And then it all blows up.
Okay, yeah, from a taxpayer standpoint, even before I took on this green bags trust, much like a lot of other people, just didn't make sense. Now, if the agreement was rescinded, what would be the time frame I would be looking at to force compliance on customers? What's the reality of what your time frame will be for it to be fully compliant at the transfer station?
Well,
That's a great
I
question.
mean, we're a ways away from anything since we have our meeting with Webster next week. And then I think for all of the pricing and then the decision about the ordinance changes would be, we'd have a public hearing on that. And then I think depending on how that went, I think any change we would want to be as fair and reasonable as possible and obviously would take input from, you know, you and the public on that. So I don't think anything would be fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause there's a portion of our thought process, that feels that some of the immediacy is retribution for putting forth the warrant article. That's just personal input. I don't expect anybody to argue it or anything, unless you want to, but that's not what I was trying for. Just to get that out there, that's how it felt. I do understand from the town standpoint about you have a system that was supposed to be being used for 14 years and it hasn't been. And so you're trying to make a ditch effort to show either it works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you feel that way about the retribution and want to just assure you that that is not the case. And I think you've witnessed firsthand, you know, the effort we're putting in and the complications. And so I do apologize that you feel
I
that
know
way.
that is a situation that you're never gonna keep everybody happy. And as before, I am 100% willing as a town resident and as a business to work with you guys to try to keep everything copacetic essentially. So I think that's it for tonight from my standpoint. But
We appreciate that.
Thank
Thank you. I see iPhone. iPhone, if you can let us know who you are, that would be helpful.
Hey, this is Rita Blanchard, 111 Barton Corner Road, Hopkinton. I just want to second the previous speakers mentioned that this feels 100% like retaliation against MC Trash for putting that proposal forward at the town meeting. And I want to ask the board if they remember what happened to Dockham's when the green bag started and they had to and wouldn't pick people's trash up unless it was in a green bag. I'm not sure if you all remember what it did to their business. And I'm curious, not that I would do this, but somebody might. If I take my pickup and run around and pick up everybody's green bags and bring them to the dump, do I then get weighed or just throw those green bags in the hopper? What about all the LLCs that are around bringing stuff in? How is that going to pan out if you do away with the current local trash company bringing stuff in?
So if you currently, per the ordinance, if you were to get a truck and pick up green bags, you would be able to dispose of them for free at the transfer station.
Okay, I think she's, all right. Thanks for the comments. Next we have Bill Palazzolo.
Unmute yourself, Bill. There you go.
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess my question was I called and I'm just a little confused because I'm at work, so I only could listen to half the meeting. I talked to Neil and Kara about the public portion, and you guys told me it was gonna be on June 10th. So about the green bags, is that still happening? Sorry if you guys covered that already, but I was just confused.
June 10th would be public.
You talked about that at the last meeting as a possibility.
Oh, as a
Wouldn't be
possibility.
before then.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I guess that was discussed as a possible date for a public hearing, but we have not actually set a date.
But the green bags, I mean, other people in the community are gonna be able to comment on this.
Yes, that is our hope. Yeah.
Okay.
We would
And
have
yeah,
a
go ahead.
hearing on it. Yeah.
Okay. And I just, for the record, I am against the green bags. I think it is a retro, it disproportionately affects families. I mean, a family of 5 or 4 that recycles everything, or you have a family of 2 that recycles nothing. The family of 5 is going to be paying much more money, even though they're doing everything you want. It makes no sense the way this is being set up. And I do have to agree with the last 2 ladies. I was at your working group, and the tipping fee raise was, I mean, we can replay. I mean, we have the video, replay it. I mean, there's no way to say that wasn't personal. The gentleman on the board specifically said he's upset that they put a warrant article out, and this is retribution. And I don't know how that can be interpreted any other way. I mean, that's what he said. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I wasn't there for that part of the meeting. So just want to say that, like, I think that our many discussions demonstrate that the board is functioning in good faith, trying to solve this thorny problem. And I suspect the comment was made by Jeff at the last meeting. And, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of what was said at the last meeting, but just want to reassure everyone that we are here publicly discussing this as we have been, trying to get it done the right way and doing it in good faith. So anyway, that's my response to that. Bill, do you have a follow-up or your hand just still up?
Muted again, Bill.
Sorry. No, I'll just close by saying, and I hear what you're saying and I appreciate that, but I will just tell you as a resident and a citizen, when you go to a meeting and hear things like that, it feels like there's retribution, and it's a chilling effect on public discourse. And I mean, I would encourage you to go back and listen to it. I think it's completely out of line. So I'll just leave it at that. It gives a chilling effect to any public discourse or disagreeing with you guys.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Did you remember your question?
Thank you, Lawrence. I'm at 86 Maple Street. I guess the two other comments I had were kind of echoing there's a lot of people in town that aren't a fan of this green bag, and with all the time and energy and effort you guys are putting into this, have you thought what the ramifications would be if at town meeting there's a petition warrant article to ditch them, and then how is that affecting your current changes? So, it probably is in the back of your mind. I just wanted to reiterate that I know there are a lot of people that are just kind of done with the green bags. Now we're going to be paying more. Is the quality of the bag going to go up? Probably not. We're going to get the same green bags that fall apart. And
So I think, and it just kind of goes back to like the why now immediacy thing. We've been having this discussion for ever,
14 years.
but very specifically, and very specifically, before not this last town meeting, but the town meeting before that, there was discussion here about rescinding the program, or putting forward a warrant article to rescind the program. There is substantial public comment saying, don't cancel the program. Let's give it a good try. And so as a board, we said, okay, let's give it a year. Let's try to implement proper pricing, and let's try to see if there's some improvements we can be made. And if we can't do that, then it's time to kill the program. We then got basically until this town meeting, and we didn't have any substantial improvements that we could implement. And so we weren't in a place where we could implement changes, or at a place where we could say, we've tried, let's put forward a warrant article to kill the program. And so I think it's absolutely worth having the conversation, but I think it's also worth noting that since the green bag program was started, pretty much every other year after that point, there was a warrant article to remove it, and it didn't pass. And so it's very easy to say people don't like it, but it's also very easy to say if it goes to town meeting, we don't know whether or not it would pass or not. And so I think that's kind of why we're here, which is to say, let's show what it would look like if we were to properly enforce it, properly price it, and then have a discussion about it.
thank you. Two other things. If a resident showed up at the transfer station without their green bags, but had a sticker or whatever, then we would direct them to the scale, have them weigh in, have them get rid of their trash, then have them.
No, as per the current ordinance, they would not be able to dispose of their waste.
It's a turn you away. Okay. I guess my last comment the evening would be, if you guys do actually put a hard green bag in effect once you set the rates, have you considered supply issues on those green bags? I've been to the Colonial looking for green bags, and them be out of stock. And if you were gonna get 50% of the town that's non-compliant to be compliant, and everybody that has trash pickup compliant, and everyone goes to the Colonial week 1 or wherever else they're supplied, there will be no green bags to be picking up, and this process will continue to be an issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
That certainly has been on my mind, because if we're ramping up, we'd have to be ready to do that.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else online or here? Bonnie?
I think I gave my name before, Bonnie Christie, Smithfield Road. Um, again, my previous comment about putting this in a framework as to why we are doing these things. Would it be helpful to pivot the conversation and stop talking about green bags? I almost feel like this community is so poisoned about green bags. But what are the green bags for? What is all this work that you guys are doing for? It's to reduce taxes for all of us. It's to cut back on all that waste that gets more and more every year. And it's to help, reduce methane. So unit-based pricing, green bags are just one form of unit-based pricing. And I think we all know what unit-based pricing is. It's you pay for what you use or you pay for what you produce. You don't expect your neighbor to pay, for 4 of your 5 bags of trash. You pay for them if you create the trash. There are other forms of unit-based pricing. There are stickers, there are punch cards. There are a lot of different ways to make sure that people are only, that they are paying their share for the waste that they produce. But my understanding from all the reading from NRRA and all the workshops is that none of those beat bags. Most places that have gone to unit-based pricing may have started with bags. It takes more time to go out and deal with bags. I'm sorry, the other way around. It takes more time for the staff to try to see if there's a little sticker on that bag over there. Is it white? Is it green? Is it clear? Does it have a sticker? The fastest, most efficient thing is to just look out the window of the office and say, is that a green bag? It's not a green bag. It's not okay. In conjunction with the sticker. Same thing if you had punch cards. Somebody's going to have to sell the punch cards. Somebody's going to have to punch the punch cards, or you're going to have to install some automatic puncher or whatever. But I do think it would be really helpful if we keep coming around to why are we doing this? Why are the green bags the method that we've chosen? And I would invite anybody else who doesn't like green bags. What's your idea? What's your idea? I mean, what else could we do? I mean, I think that would be helpful if there are other options that are proven with data and information to reduce our trash and reduce our taxes and reduce the methane and carbon emissions. I'd be all for it, but I don't know what they are. I've never read anything that beats bags, so.
All right, thank you, Bonnie. Anyone else? All right.
Kirk Morrill. I have a follow-up answer to Bonnie's question.
Will you speak into the mic though so we can catch you?
Sorry. She wants to know what to do about green bags. We already have a program in place to offset the green bags. We offer for the black bag service. You pay more because you guys charge us for that. So that's already there. And now you're talking about taking it away. So that was just one idea.
Okay.
It'd be no different than, and I brought this up at other meetings, the town of Derry, you pull in, doesn't matter if you have a grocery bag full of tissues, you drive over the scales, there's a minimum charge, you pull out when you're empty. Now, yes, that our layout of the dump, that is not feasible. But it would be fair, you bring 5 pounds in, you pay for it, you bring 500 in, you pay for it. So there are 2 options right there.
Yeah, thank you. We will have more discussion on all of this, obviously, but yeah. Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we do have other things we have to cover tonight, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who showed up and commented, and we really do appreciate people's involvement because as you can tell, this is not an easy issue. So thank you all for being part of the discussion and more to come. Okay, so we do have new business. So first up is health insurance.
All right. So we are coming up on our renewal time. And currently we offer two plans. We offer the AB 20, which the town pays 90%, the employees pay 10%. It's off, that's what it is. We also have a plan that we had before that we capped that was more expensive, but employees paid the difference. So, so we would like, they're phasing out that upper level one, and really we've gotten everybody for the most part to switch at this point anyways. So we would like to leave the AB 20 the way it is, but offer the ABOS 20, which is a $1,000, includes a $1,000, $3,000 deductible. So, and under this plan, we want to encourage people to move to this. The town would cover half the deductible, and then there would be no employee share to keep it even. And basically, for each single plan on that, if people switched, the town saves $1,000. For each family plan that we save 2,600. Employees share too. We're trying to sell it to them to do that. So we would like to, so the main change is that we would cover up to half the deductible. Now, they suggest we only budget, that deductible only gets used if it gets used. So the average is only 40% of that gets used. So actually, these are worst case scenario numbers. We should be saving even more on the deductible for both employees and for the town. And that there'd be no cost sharing on that particular plan, and the goal of moving everybody to that. Does that make sense?
So there'd be no 90-10.
It would be on the regular plan,
Yeah.
just as it is now. But if you switch to the deductible plan, it wouldn't, which still saves
And the
substantially.
town pays the full premium on that?
The town pays the full premium and
half the deductible.
and half the deductible. And this is how much we save. If everyone switched, for example, it'd be $65,000.
Is this new plan offered by the same provider?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
not like we're switching, networks or
no,
coverage.
and it really doesn't change the coverage. It just adds a deductible. That's the main
Okay.
change. There was a lot of pushback when we were thinking of going to this fully. And I think doing it this way to work people in is a good way to do it.
So the current AB 20 90-10, there's no deductible?
There's no deductible.
Wow,
We
I
haven't
didn't
had a
realize that.
deductible.
When would the town pay our portion of the deductible?
As it's accrued.
Okay.
That's,
So throughout the year.
so we'll get a health trust who we get will take care of that and bill us monthly for any deductible that's our share.
But I think what I mean is if you're a town employee and you have some medical needs and some of the services are only offered or only covered once the deductible is met, what's the timing of when we're paying their portion of the deductible?
We're paying the first 500, right?
We're reimbursing them. We're not paying it directly to the providers.
No, it gets paid directly to the providers. They could get reimbursed through their FSA if they have it. But we do.
So we would pay the first 500 of $1,000 deductible.
That's
And then
the way
if
it's
they
set
had
up
additional costs, they'd be responsible for that
The-
second 500 chunk
for the rest.
But when are we paying that first 500?
as it comes in.
As
So
it comes in.
conceivably, they might never
We
hit that
paying
500.
first.
We're paying first.
Why are we
500.
paying first instead of?
So there is the
Better to
option
do.
of first, shared, or second
But it's more generous to the employees to do
to go
500.
They're not
first.
paying. That's pretty damn generous.
Well, yeah, it's a nice. it's a
It
nice
is.
plan.
And you're saying the family plan wouldn't pay either? There's no premium to the employee for a family plan?
Correct.
For the current.
Currently, it's 90-10.
So we're gonna eliminate the 10% that the employee pays and pay their deductible.
On that
Half the
particular plan
And save money.
and save money
and
to
save money.
encourage people to switch over.
We've gotten, and
We're still
How
doing
much-
the 90-10 on the AB 20.
I mean, I like the concept. I think I'm having the same concern Jeff does about the 100%.
Then you probably won't get as many people switching because there's no incentive to switch.
Yeah, so this saves us money, even though conceptually it's sort of mind
It
blowing
does.
to hear.
So it's kind of, it's really the same concept as we've been using. That we pay, the town pays a set amount. And when they had the higher plan, they made up the difference. We'll pay up to that same amount, but with the lower plan, we're paying less.
Are these based on like a pool? It's just us?
It's us in the school.
So if our usage goes up, then,
Our usage was horrible last year. It can only go down.
well, so if our usage
I
goes,
hope.
if our usage goes up, then these prices would go up.
Yeah, but that's the same on
Well,
everything.
right, but so like, I'm trying to think through why it's cheaper. And I think the reason why it's cheaper is because if you have a deductible, then you're less incentivized to use the healthcare.
That is correct.
However, if the incentive, if they're saying that they usually only use around 50% of the deductible, then they're effectively using our portion of the deductible, not their portion of the deductible. And so if the usage is basically the same, is our price still gonna go up? Like, I guess they're saying no. 'cause
This
they already
plan's
know
still
our numbers.
lower. Yeah.
They already know our numbers.
Yeah, they do know. We're at 140, which means for every dollar we put in last year, they spent $1.40 on us as a group, us and the school. So that's why our rates went up 19%.
I just conceptually have a hard time going from an employee contributing to health insurance to an employee not contributing to health insurance. That's,
Well,
So
they are.
it saves
If
us money.
if they take the lower plan. That doesn't change the current plan. Still leaves it 90-10.
So that's still an option for
Right.
employees to choose that.
Right.
Is the idea that at some point the 90-10 plan would go away?
The more people we can move to the other, yes. And I think you can also, if you can get more people switched, can then move to, if it's the 90-10 for the lower plan too.
Does the school offer this option?
The school is on the other option and has been for a number of years. They're already on that option.
The deductible option.
Yep.
Oh,
And
huh.
they're at 93,
I
and I think.
when they switched, they were at 100 too. I don't know what they're at now.
Tempted to say that their contracts were 93.7.
So the premium payment on this new proposed plan for the town, at least, the school's already on it.
Yes.
So we'd pay 100% of the premium. But I'm assuming it's lower because it's a plan that has a deductible attached to it. I mean, there's.
But the
that's where
school's already on the deductible plan.
Right, okay,
They don't offer the AB 20.
got it, okay.
And what we've seen is towns lowering the percentage employees are paying, not going the other way during COVID because of the. So it hasn't been good time to raise that. We used to be 93.7 and we went to 90.10. I can't remember how many years ago.
Yeah,
And I think the intent then was to change that, to keep increasing the 10 portion, the employee portion, but then
mm-hmm.
now in this market, that has not been the wise thing.
You know, when the school switched to this plan, did they see the savings that they were anticipating?
I think they did. They saw substantial savings.
They broadcast that widely.
Okay.
Several years ago.
And was there a commensurate sort of complaint about a drop off in services that employees were getting?
Not.
The same network.
There was a
isn't it?
little of that, but I'm not sure how valid it was. And that's sort of permeated here too, which is one of the reasons we had a hard time sort of presenting this new plan without sort of an uprising. So
But it's the same network, right?
it's the same network.
Yeah.
Everything's all the
So
same.
my guess is like, if you're used to paying no deductible and then all of a sudden you start getting some bills because you're responsible for deductible, my guess is some people were like, oh, this insurance isn't as good, but in reality, same access to the same network.
And we would
um,
do major education. Health Trust will come in and do that.
Well, I mean, if it saves us money, that seems to be a logical step to take.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it looks like a great deal. Has there been, have you floated this at all to the employees or? department heads?
We have, and they seem to let, before there was a lot of negativity, I think actually coming from the finance department, but Kelly is definitely on board, understands it. And so I think we can sell this and explain to people it is different. There's no deductible if you go to specific in-network, lower cost providers. We also have the Smart Shopper, which pushes that. We actually get money back if you're going to get a procedure and you call Smart Shopper and you go, like, for example, to Quest in Concord, which is right near the hospital, but it's less than half the price to get something done. The employee gets back $100 or $200 or something. That's through Health Trust that handles all that. So I think there's a hope to do more and more consumerism.
So what's the timing on this? It would be for 2025?
July 1st,
Oh, yeah,
2024.
It's not calendar year. Okay.
Yep. Because now's the time.
Do you need a
And-
vote?
Yeah, to officially do it, to either go with this plan or if you want to change percentages, although I really do think to get more people to switch.
I mean, I'd like what you're doing. I appreciate it, but 100% just, I think we're gonna get a lot of pushback from residents when they understand that.
But the plan we have now is staying at 90-10
Mhm.
With no deductible.
No,
with no deductible.
Pushback from residents, can't we point to the school district as an example and say they've saved money?
I'm sure that's a good.
But if they're at 93.
No, right.
But I mean, the whole argument here is this is the recommendation because it's intended to save the town money, right?
That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, in that part. I'm
And
totally
employees,
supportive of
and
it.
employees' money.
We also choose which one to offer, right? The next year could we choose whatever plan to offer? Like, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
on paper, this just saves everybody money. And if it's not saving us money, then we go back to the other one next year.
Well, nobody even has to, I mean, even if we implement this, all the town employees can stay on the current plan.
Right.
Nobody has to change.
So there, and we budgeted for that plan.
Yeah.
There won't be, like, it might not be any changes. I can tell you if you vote this, I will switch because clearly I could use an extra $2,300.
That's a good selling.
It's that simple and it saves the town over $2,000. So that's just me. Yeah. But if you up my premium and it's not really much savings, then I'm not going to deal with the hassle of a deductible and doing all that.
But it's not like if this plan isn't working out, we're just gonna be charging more money. Like, this locks in the contract for the year. And if next year they come back and it's way more expensive, then go with it.
If nobody does it, it's
It's
what we
status quo.
budgeted.
Yeah.
We don't save money.
If I'm the only one that does it, you save $2,000. That's kind of, and I'm not doing this to save money for me.
What percentage of our subscribers are single versus not single?
I'd have to look at that. We have a lot more people on the $4,000 stipend, which is a huge savings.
Mm.
Kelly gave me that. I think it's like, we probably have 50% are family and then the rest are single or two-person, I think. I would guess.
You had said annual savings, is it to the town of 65,000?
If everybody switched, it would be 65,000. If everybody switched and we paid out all the deductibles, every single cent of the deductible.
Which is not a given.
It's not even likely. They suggest you budget only 40%. So
So the 65K is a very conservative estimate.
that's right.
And I guess it wasn't clear, the deductible, is it the first 500 is paid by the town and then the next 500 by the employee, or is it 50-50 all the way through?
There are three options. The first, the town pays the first, it's split 50-50 all the way through, or the town pays the second.
I mean, I think I'm coming around to saying I support this, but I think on the deductible, the 50-50 makes sense to me. It incentivizes.
I think the town should front the deductible because it sounds like that's how you incentivize more people to switch. And so you see more savings. If more people are on this new plan.
You don't think them not paying is a big incentive?
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm realizing I should recuse myself from this vote anyway, so I'll leave it at, I think what you presented makes
You can
sense.
still share your thoughts.
Well, I did kind of, I mean, I think they're both generous, nice plans. I do think if the goal is to get people to switch over, offering the most generous, which sounds like the town pays half the deductible up front, would be the thing that incentivizes people more. But I think, like, you know, if Ken, you want to do 50-50, that's also still a nice insurance plan.
Okay, why don't I'll move that we approve this second option with the understanding that any deductible costs will be shared 50-50.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Okay, and I'm just gonna abstain. So that's 4 in favor. Thank you for that discussion. Thank you, Neil, for that. Okay, next up is detail pay rates for police.
Yeah, so it's in your packet from the chief. He'd like to raise the detail rates. So that we're charging $105 per hour. This would be $70 to the officer, 20 for the admin fee, and 15 for a cruiser. And he gave you the rates. This would make us the highest rate. There's no cost to the town that isn't covered by this. There's the police admin sends out the bills, so there's some time there.
Isn't there, if the officer gets 70, isn't there social security, Medicare, retirement?
Yes, which comes out of the admin. Retirement, no, not any longer. So it is, it's only Medicare because they don't get social security, and retirement is no longer covered except for the chief because he's been here long enough, but nobody else has. So New Hampshire retirement changed all their requirements. So those days of police working details their last 3 years and then getting a retirement pension bigger than their salary are gone. And then there was a special revenue fund set up, and it all goes into that, which pays all the expenses, and then generally we make some money. He also recommended as part of this that this not apply to the fare rates stay the same. Those went up a couple of years ago. And if you have questions for him, he can come. He asked if he should come tonight, but I looked at the agenda and said, no, if we can get back to you with that. It is.
I don't have a problem with the increase as long as all our costs are covered. That's what I care about.
When did we last set this? I remember talking about. it
I'm
then.
pretty sure it was Chief Pecora was still there when we upped it the last time. So that's been 3 years. Because I'm pretty sure it was in November. So, and we've had 2 Novembers without Chief Pecora.
Who does this affect?
Who what?
Who does this affect?
It affects anybody who hires them for details. If they're sitting on the road, it's the contractors and
Got it.
pay it. Ultimately us, the taxpayers, because that means the projects are.
Is it premature for a motion?
No, I think it's ripe for a motion. I think.
I make a motion to grant the chief's request to go to 105, except for the fare, which is a different rate. And I'll also include the increase if the details on a holiday are more than 8 hours. It's a time and a half.
All right.
Second.
Jeff seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. That's it for new business. So any town administrator updates?
I'll just, the financial.
Oh, right.
Really
Sorry.
weren't.
Financials.
Revenues are very good. The state grant that looks like it's way up is way up, but most of that was the rail trail grant that we received this year, even though it was expended last year. So that's good. And you should note in the detail of the revenue, the income from our investments, which is our checking account interest, we are already at basically what we budgeted. We're going to be somewhere over so we budgeted 135,000. We're at 124,000 already. We're going to probably be over 200,000 in revenue just by moving that to the Citizens Bank account. That's made a big difference. We also have had the $2 million from the road bond, which will start getting expended. So we won't have that, but we have other money.
Do we know when that'll start getting expended?
What was that?
Do you know when that they're gonna start doing the construction?
End of June, July. It's coming. And summary of expenses. IT is running really high. There were police issues when we switched servers. I think that was the big thing that was kind of surprised. So we'll have to watch that pretty closely. Everything else is mostly timing and paid for the year. If it's like regional planning was over $300, but that's done for the year.
Okay, time for my questions.
Sure.
Actually, your comment on interest, I don't know if anybody was following Senate Bill 522, but it's been amended so that it won't, it looks like it won't hurt us.
Oh, that's the one that we got the letter on
From Durham, yeah.
Okay,
And,
good.
where I was at a meeting at the Municipal Association and that came up, they indicated it was an amendment that seems that like it's gonna pass, that will allow us to, the interest is still
Oh, good.
continue at a high level.
That's PDIP specifically, right?
That's what?
PDIP, the public
Oh,
investment.
the
pool.
public
Yes,
insurance.
yes.
That's specifically about that, which is, yeah, we have capital reserve funds in there.
Mhm.
That's a second option for this, but we're not using that right now for this money.
And actually, Sabrina, I had a question for you on revenues. What's happening at the state with regards to ambulance fees and billing for when there's non-transportation?
There's a couple of ambulance bills still in flux.
Okay.
So the issue though, I'm trying to think how it would impact us. Because we already use Comstar, right, to collect.
We do.
Yeah. And so there was a bill that would have set, well, it was a little complicated, but basically municipalities could set a rate after a public hearing and or 325% of Medicare, whichever was lower. So basically it was going to be a default rate of 325% of Medicare, because why wouldn't municipalities just set that rate? Anyway, so that bill was amended to create a study by the insurance department to look at the costs for ambulance services in New Hampshire. And that report, if that version of the bill passes, that report would be due by the end of this year to the legislature to then use to do something or nothing in terms of like rate setting or other legislation on
So
ambulance.
we can't look for any relief in 2024.
Well, it depends on yeah, I would say like, well, it's unclear what will happen with, there's still a lot of time for these bills to go be tacked on to something else, or different versions could go to a committee of conference. I mean, there's still a lot of time for things to happen with the bills, but I think Medicaid rates went up last year, I want to say. And then obviously nothing the state does touches Medicare. And the biggest chunk of ambulance services are Medicaid, Medicare, or people without insurance. Commercial insurance makes up a very small percentage.
Yep.
And so I don't think the bill was going to really move the needle for municipalities very much. That's just my personal opinion. But the bottom line is there's still time for that Senate version to pass that set that rate. But I think it's more likely that the study version will move forward. And so that means TBD. But yeah, I would say for 2024, there's not going to be anything major for us anyway.
Okay.
The only major would ever be if they raise the Medicare rates, because that's largely what it is. Largely what.
Yeah, and I think tackling the issue of like, we heard from Chief Yale, I think it was him at least, who commented on like one residence that calls 50 times a year. And a lot of times those are just paid for, we've decided as a community, we're gonna have 24/7 ambulance and we all pick up that cost. And so I think until we solve the many complicating issues of why it's expensive to run 24/7 ambulance, the reality is what it is. I'm not sure legislation is gonna really help all that much.
Fair enough.
I will tell you, that was a short version of an answer for an issue
I-
that
I-
has been
I
talked
understand,
about ad
you know,
nauseum.
What happens in the legislature, especially at the end, is crazy. Um, On the expense side, a question, Neil, have you gotten the energy audit reports?
We've gotten one for this building. We haven't gotten the others yet.
Did it show anything where we could particularly save?
Maybe a little, not a lot, I don't think, because we've done most of the big things with the last energy audit.
Okay. Thank you, that's all.
All right.
Updates, a piece of good news. Believe it or not, we go out to bid for number 2 fuel oil with the school. The bid is come in at $2.84 at HR Clough, which is good. We really like working with Clough. Currently we're paying $309 and we budgeted $350. So that came in below budget. So that's good. You have in front of you the cabin invite. We're doing a cookout for the volunteers and the public's welcome, and we'll thank them for all their work, which is complete. We received an email on, there's going to be mediation for our case with PSNH, which is going to be on Wednesday, May 22nd, a week from this Wednesday, 8 to 5. And they have asked that a TA town manager or administrative assistant, the assessor, and ideally one select board member must be in attendance. So I will attend that. And if somebody wants to go, and then I'd like authority to speak on behalf of the town with all the other towns, if that's the case.
So it's May 22nd.
It is May 22nd, which is a Wednesday, 8 to
Is
5.
that next Wednesday?
It is next Wednesday.
Where is it?
The Municipal Center. 25 Triangle Park. Yeah, right here, right behind Home Depot. I remember going there when there wasn't anything around it. It was out in the middle of nowhere.
There's an apartment complex right behind it.
Yeah, it's a lot fuller now.
So ideally a select board member would go like just as
I guess so you can.
process or like,
It's really, the one good thing is we only have 1 year. Our share of this is really small in comparison. When we get the bills for $10,000 and we have to pay $50, our share is small.
Doing it right.
Yeah, so I doubt we would hold up anything for all the people who are really paying the bill.
so do you really just need us to vote to give you authority to, yeah.
Yeah, act on behalf of the town.
I'll move that.
Anything but not have to go, right?
I was at the Municipal Association last week.
All right, Ken moved it. I'll second that. To give Neil the authority to speak on the town's behalf at this mediation.
And
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, thank you, Neil.
And I had, I think, 42 applications on Indeed for the human services position.
Wow.
There's 10 that are still in the mix that we'll get ready to start interviewing, and hopefully we can have someone in place. The sooner,
That's
the better.
Empty today?
Is that why?
Is that empty today?
Yeah.
All the-
Yeah, this is week 2 of that. So I've been spending some time over there. Alicia had set up some programs for this month on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Last week was decluttering and downsizing. I think this week is how to have those tough conversations, and next week is writing your own obituary. It came out of the survey. I think there were 40 something people last week on the decluttering one. It was the fullest lunch in a long time. These programs, sort of the praise Alicia, who's no longer here. These have been good, and
Part of a senior lunch.
it's before lunch,
Okay.
but then people stay for
Right.
lunch.
Yep.
They used to do it after lunch, and they're finding, or they used to do it like an hour before lunch. Now it's 2 hours before lunch at 10. It's an hour and a half program, and then there's a half-hour break for lunch, and it's worked really well. We filled every table and then added chairs and then added another table last week. It just kept for lunch. So I ended up eating in the kitchen because I lost my seat 6 times because people kept coming in, which was fine. I actually like that. But I'll be happy when somebody's in that position. So we
Yeah.
do have certainly welfare clients, things going on.
We have no non-publics tonight, is that correct?
No,
Anyone have
publics, I
anything
think
for
we're-
other?
There was a Concom application.
Yeah.
That might be a non-public.
It could be, if you want to act on it now. The Conservation Commission is actually meeting and was going to send, because they have no alternates at this point, because all the alternates have been moved up.
People want to talk about this today? What if we don't do it? Is there any urgency to?
Not, and you may want to wait to hear back from the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Ron
Sorry,
Clamar,
sorry, go ahead.
Ron Klamarzik is the chair of Conservation now.
I just wanted to mention that the Budget Committee is tentatively looking at giving guidance that they'd like to see the tax rate, the total tax rate, the increase maybe be tied to inflation.
Wait, what?
Limited to inflation?
Yeah,
Why?
why?
That-
As a goal.
No, but the tax
Tax
rate.
rate's gonna drop based on.
Yeah,
the
tax rate is
re-
tied to property taxes, which increase faster than inflation. So you're saying you want the tax rate.
I think the amount raised by taxes.
That's very different than tax rate though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the amount to be raised by tax, because next year when the tax rate drops in half, we'll have no problem keeping it at 3502.
Right. Is there, okay.
It's the amount to be raised by taxes. Yes,
Because
I was at that meeting. It's the amount to be raised by taxes.
And is there a specific index of inflation or just general?
not yet.
Okay.
They're discussing that. There's numerous indexes they've looked at.
Great. Just, I think it's important to note that like the general inflation doesn't include healthcare costs, which make up a substantial portion of both the town and the school budget.
And they were talking about doing this in September, and I requested that they do it before August when we begin our budget process. So we know, so you have time to get it and talk about it before we start.
Okay.
Right.
Need that motion to adjourn? Stephen.
I made the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.